desert, seemingly out of nowhere, we have fossils from the ocean, different genres of marine organisms. Where did they come from, and why are they here? Some say that a great flood did in fact happen, that it was real.
Think about this. You're standing on the Giza Plateau, surrounded by thousands of years of silence and stone.
We have pyramids in our country, and that they're connected to pyramids all over the world.
The sun hits your face, but your eyes can't look away from something that has stood there longer than most civilizations. The pyramids of Giza.
That the Great Pyramid was largely completed by the ancient Egyptians.
Giants of time still stand tall after wave of chaos, invasion, and decay.
Empire State Building of its day. It reaches 480 feet tall, and for about 4,000 years, it is the tallest man-made structure on the planet.
But how are they still standing, despite this mysterious thing that happened to their casing stones? Buckle up tight to find out the answers. It's easy to focus on the Great Pyramid of Khufu or the imposing Pyramid of Khafra. After all, they dominate the skyline. But tucked away in the shadows of their colossal neighbors, one pyramid often gets overlooked: the Pyramid of Menkaure. Well, not because it is smaller, but because there are other hidden mysteries behind it. This pyramid tells a story many people miss, not just of brilliant engineering but also endurance, loss, and silent resistance against nature's fury. Now, imagine deep red granite blocks glinting in the sunlight. That's not your typical limestone finish. We're talking about some of the hardest stones you can work with, shaped and fitted so perfectly that it feels like the blocks were melted into each other. The bottom section of Menkaure's pyramid was wrapped in this armor. And why would they go through so much trouble? Let's pause here for a second. We're talking about granite, not soft beach rock. This stuff is tough, harder than the white Tura limestone that coated most other pyramids. So why use it here? And only for the first 15 or 16 layers? Some have called it artistic flair, while others say it was symbolic. But here's a thought. What if it was survival? Flash floods. Those don't usually come to mind when we think of ancient Egypt. But think again. Back during the Old Kingdom, Egypt wasn't all desert and dust. It was wetter, stormier. And when those rare desert rains came, they didn't gently water the flowers. They ripped across the land with a rage that could destroy anything in their path, especially structures made from porous limestone. Menkaure's burial chamber was built low, near or beneath the natural ground level. So, what happens when a sudden storm crashes across the plateau? The runoff water, following the slope of the land, slams into the base of the pyramid. The limestone may crumble. But granite? Granite fights back. So maybe this wasn't about beauty. It could be ancient engineering, crisis management from before meteorologists, and concrete flood barriers. The pyramid's granite casing might have been a lifeline, protecting the king's final resting place from drowning in the sand and storm water. Want proof this wasn't just theory? Let's talk about what happened to Menkaure's Valley Temple. Archaeologist George Reisner uncovered the scars, evidence of a devastating flash flood that roared down the northern slope of the causeway. The flood didn't just wet the floor. It tore through the western wall, gutted the offering hall, and wrecked the portico. The temple was left broken and abandoned. And that's heavy. This wasn't just stone. This was a place built to last forever, meant for a king to exist beyond death. And it got washed away. Centuries later, a ruler from the 6th dynasty, likely Pepi II, tried to bring it back. Restoration, a second chance. But the damage had already been done. So now, when we look at the granite base of Menkaure's pyramid, it hits differently. It's not just craftsmanship, it's defiance. The message says, "We knew the storm would come, and we fought to outlast it." The way those granite stones are cut and placed is breathtaking. They don't just sit next to each other, they lock together like puzzle pieces, with joints so tight you can barely slide a blade between them. No gaps, no shortcuts. These weren't just workers. They were masters, artists, engineers, defenders of the dead. And today, after millennia of erosion, earthquakes, looting, and time itself trying to erase them, those granite blocks still hold strong, but not in perfect condition. Some say it's evidence of a catastrophe, a solar blast, a cosmic event, or maybe even a lost ancient technology that could cut granite like butter. It's easy to get caught up in those theories. They're fascinating, right? But the truth? It's not as flashy, not as mysterious. Strangely, it's even more powerful, because it reminds us just how relentless nature can be. Let's rewind a bit. The pyramid in question is the Pyramid of Menkaure, built during Egypt's 4th dynasty. Here's something interesting. Most granite casing stones near its base were never fully finished. Their outer surfaces still have this raw, rugged look. And there's a reason for that. Historians believe that Pharaoh Menkaure died before the project was completed. His successor, Shepseskaf, had to wrap things up quickly. So, the granite work was left rough. The valley temple was slapped together in mud brick instead of stone. It was rushed. You can almost feel the pressure in the choices they made. But let's go back to those flaking stones. You see, it's not just that they were unfinished, it's how they look now. Many granite blocks appear as if a thin outer layer is coming off. It almost looks like something cooked by them. And that's where the wild theories come in. Solar flare? Maybe. Cosmic blast? Intriguing. Some even say the stones were artificial, with advanced geopolymer science long lost to history. It's about decay. Slow, invisible decay that no one sees happening until it's already done. Picture this: centuries of rain, wind, dew, and even groundwater slowly seeping into the micro cracks of granite and not destroying it dramatically, just changing it. Granite might be strong, but it's not invincible. It comprises all these tiny minerals: quartz, feldspar, mica, and biotite. Each one reacts to the environment a little differently. Over time, water and oxygen sneak in through hairline fractures and tiny pores left behind from when the stones were first cut. And that's when the transformation begins. One mineral might rust, another one might dissolve. Some swell, others crumble. This creates even more cracks and more openings for nature to crawl into. Slowly, layer by layer, the outer surface of the granite begins to break down. It happens all over the world. Pick up a granite boulder in your backyard, split it open, and you might see the same thing: a sharp difference between the fresh inner rock and the weathered outer layer. It's eerie, like seeing a stone breathe through the centuries. At Giza, it's no different. The Pyramid of Menkaure, the Valley Temple of Khafre, and even the massive unfinished obelisk in Aswan all bear the scars of weathering. These aren't signs of heat or cosmic forces. They're the quiet fingerprints of rain, dew, and time. Just water interacting with minerals. Nothing magical. But somehow, it is still profound. Because when you realize that this decay wasn't caused by violence, but by patience, it changes everything. It's humbling. There's no need for cataclysms or lost technologies. There is no need for fire from the sky. We're seeing the result of thousands of years of soft, persistent change. It's a reminder that even the strongest stone loses to time. And maybe that's the saddest part. These granite blocks were once symbols of power, permanence, and eternity. The people who placed them believed they'd last forever. But forever doesn't exist. Not for us, stone, or anything exposed to the world and its slow, steady forces. Now, we have seen what happened to these casing stones. But have you ever wondered how they were used to make giant pyramids? At first sight, the Great Pyramid looks like a crumbling mountain of broken stone, eroded, weathered, stripped bare by time. But up near the very top, clinging like forgotten memories, are a few blocks that haven't moved in over 4,000 years. These are the original casing stones, and they're not just pieces of limestone. They're relics, ghosts of what used to be. Most visitors never even notice them. They're out of reach, far above the chaos of tourists and cameras. But that's what makes them so powerful, untouched, undisturbed, preserved by height alone. Those stones held their ground while everything else was looted, cracked, or worn down by centuries of wind and sun. And they tell a different story, not about decay, but about brilliance. Standing at the base, staring up at those jagged steps, it's easy to forget now that this thing wasn't always like this. Think about it. This pyramid once shone. It gleamed white like a frozen wave under the desert sun. It had smooth sides and clean lines. There were no steps, no gaps, just light bouncing off Tura limestone so bright you could see it from miles away. It didn't just sit in the sand, it commanded the horizon. But here's where things start to shift. That outer shell, the polished skin, it wasn't just for the show. That was the purpose. The inner core, just the frame, the scaffolding. That means those few stones still hanging near the top matter more than anyone realizes. Because they're not leftovers. They're clues to what the pyramid once looked like. And maybe even how it was made. There's always been a pull toward them. Something about the precision. The way each block slots in like it was designed for a machine, even though it wasn't. Those casing stones were cut with such insane accuracy that it's hard not to get obsessive. And that's exactly what happened. One day, a researcher took every drone photo of the pyramid's peak frame by frame. He stitched them together, layer by layer, building a rough layout of the top 47 courses. It was not perfect, but enough to see patterns, enough to start asking questions. And soon, others joined in. Strangers sent theories. Engineers offered to model the layers in 3D. For a moment, it felt like progress. Then came the wall. The clarity just wasn't there. Drone shots couldn't capture enough detail. The layout was a blur. And yet, two strange details kept pulling at the thread. First, there were little slits between some stones. Narrow gaps. It's just wide enough to suggest something once slid in there. Wood, maybe? Some scaffold? Could these be the footprints of a forgotten construction method? Second, the corners. In several spots, small wedge-shaped blocks appeared to bind the larger casing stones together, almost like keystones in an arch. And they weren't placed at random. They looked intentional, crafted, a puzzle piece with purpose. And that opened up another question. Were these wedges the secret to how the outer skin stayed in place? But the answers stayed blurry. Less than 1/3 of the visible casing stones could be mapped confidently. The rest? A smear of pixels, a lost opportunity. Thousands of blocks, maybe 8,000, still cling to the pyramid's faces, sitting silently. Each one is a potential clue, and barely anyone can see them. That's when obsession took over again. No more drones, no more guesswork, just a person, a camera, and an idea. What if someone could photograph each stone clearly from the ground? What if they could precisely capture the layout to map the entire surviving skin, block by block. Easier said than done. First, the angles. Stand too close, the pyramid becomes chaotic. Edges stretch, lines bend, and everything distorts. Step too far back, and now you need extreme magnification to pick out the edges of the stones. The sweet spot ended up being about 200 meters from the base. That put the camera roughly 340 meters away from the summit. Then came the real hurdle: gear. You can't show up on the Giza Plateau with a giant tripod and expect smiles. Rules are fluid, and what counts as just a tourist changes by the hour. Tripods, they're completely banned. So, every shot had to be handheld in the wind, with a telephoto lens designed to punch into the sky. The solution? Build a kit small enough to hide in a backpack, but strong enough to catch the tiniest details. Ultimately, it was an 840mm lens on a full-frame sensor. It's not exactly subtle, but it worked. Access, though, was limited. The western face? Blocked, guarded, off-limits. So, only 3 sides were usable. The rest would have to wait. On the first attempt, the weather turned. Rain fell sideways. The wind howled across the plateau. But through the lens, something clicked. The upper stones came into focus like never before. Not just as blocks, but as actions, as choices. You could see how builders adjusted for mistakes, filled gaps with wedges, shifted angles on the fly. This wasn't a symbol of perfection. It was a record of work, of human hands making decisions in real time. Some suspected scaffold slots. They looked real. Others, not so much. And that tiny block that first sparked the whole theory? A chipped edge, after all. But that's what real investigation feels like. Hope and disappointment tangled together. The strangest part? Those handheld photos? They turned out sharper than the drone videos. Clearer lines, visible joints, even where patterns showed up. Some blocks looked original. Others, maybe added later, maybe cracked and reset. You could start to see the pyramid, not as a tourist site, but as a construction site, alive with thought and error and craft. It's easy to mythologize the pyramids as flawless marvels from some lost golden age, but when you zoom in, really close, a different picture forms, one of trial and error, ingenuity, and people trying to solve impossible problems with stone and willpower. There are still thousands of casing stones gripping that ancient monument, and each one holds a secret, not about magic, but about the process and labor used to construct these great pyramids. Moreover, surprisingly, for the first time in over 4,500 years, someone could see the layout of Khafra's pyramid better than anyone since it was built. Through extensive visual inspection, the researcher noticed something remarkable. Despite the builders' use of best practices, they occasionally bent design rules due to practical constraints. One example of this is what he refers to as the tapered bonding stones. These smaller blocks were likely used to fit separated casing stones by sliding them down from above, rather than pushing them in from the sides, a much easier method considering the weight and precision required. Starting from the top, the researcher realized his images captured details better than many drone videos, revealing new insights even in previously studied areas. This prompted a shift in perspective, from viewing the pyramid as a symbol of perfection to understanding it as a functional structure shaped by real-world limitations. These observations challenge long-standing pyramid construction models, some of which, like those proposed by Flinders Petrie or Mark Lehner, can now be set aside. While the ultimate construction method hasn't been definitively solved, a major step has been taken. The clues are etched into the stones themselves, waiting to be uncovered with careful observation and open minds. So, guys, how do you find this video? Tell us in the comments section and make sure to subscribe to the channel.